everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Designing Around ERP Limitations, a customer story about IVE's proven extension approach. My name is Rosalind Haynes from Clear Dynamics, and I'm your moderator for today. Before we begin, just some quick housekeeping. This session is being recorded, and we'll send you the replay afterwards to play back anything and to share. If you have any questions at any point, please pop them just into the chat and then we'll weave in as many responses as possible. But look, we've got a fantastic session lined up for today, and it's centred around a real customer transformation story. So joining me today are two excellent guests. First, Santo Lucerdo is the Chief Technology Officer for IVE Group's CX and data business, with over 20 years experience delivering data-driven technology solutions across customer communications and business process services. Santo, thanks for being with us.
Pleasure to be here today, Rosalind. Thank you.
And we're also joined by Jenny Wilson, the Head of Technology Operations and Product at Clear Dynamics. Jenny and her team help show our customers what's possible with our technology and supports them through their transformation journey. Welcome, Jenny.
Thanks, Ros.
So I'll just start by setting the scene. Let's frame today's conversation. And nearly every business has experienced that moment where the ERP stops being a perfect fit. Processes evolve, products evolve, customer expectations change, but the ERP stays rigid. At IVE, this challenge was amplified by scale, complexity, and the need to support highly distinctive manufacturing workflows. Today, we're digging into how IVE successfully navigated these ERP limitations without changing the ERP and without customising it to death, instead using a proven augmentation model. So let's start at the beginning. Santo, for everyone listening, can you please describe what IVE's environment looked like before partnering with Clear Dynamics, and what made your landscape particularly challenging?
Okay, thanks, Ross. Look, I'll probably try to frame up and talk about a little bit what IVE does as an organisation at a very high level. We're a large, diversified marketing services organisation that has a plethora or widespread number of different service types. We operate across multiple sites and hundreds of custom applications for our clients that are tailored for personalised communications. And we have a kind of a combination of professional services and I'll call them sophisticated manufacturing services. So our workflows need to be dovetailed into a CPQ-led ERP. And over the years, we've had a number of acquisitions, and we resulted in having 4 legacy ERP platforms prior to our current project. And we had to rationalize those into one So from the 4 ones we had beforehand were all deemed not suitable to proceed. So we wanted to actually put in place a standardized architecture that helped us to nationally implement standards or processes across our various sites and so forth. So the future state ERP would serve specific standard functions, but it had to cover off our job manufacturing processes and the nuances of those workflows themselves. So it could not support previously what we needed, the ERP in isolation. So unlike many organisations that typically you have from quote right through to invoice as a sort of a one-to-one path, in our case, we receive variable data for marketing campaigns from our clients, and the quoted quantities very seldom or rarely match the actual quantities that we end up processing. And therefore, it doesn't go from quote through to invoice. It's all about having to have the ability to reconcile at every point of the reconciliation process based on the actual records that we're producing. And given I mentioned before that we have 600 custom applications, it was impractical to re-architect 600 applications to normalize our data flows or our data schemas in a scalable way to ingest into like a singular model that would then pass through to our shop floor reconciliation processes and then the subsequent billing functions. So that was a little bit about our challenge in our landscape.
Thanks, Santo. Jenny, when you first engaged with IVE, what stood out as the clearest indicators that the ERP wasn't capable of supporting the full operation in reality?
Yeah, so Santos has definitely touched on one of those, which was just very distinctive manufacturing processes that mean that data is variable all the way through. And so that was definitely one of the key areas that we noticed up front. Just the reconciliation complexity then of that, there's a quote, there's a final invoice that has to be paid out that has to be sent out to the customer, and making sure that there is line of sight and the ability to reconcile and also go back and understand that reconciliation. And inherent with that, and you can hear from Santo, is a lot of integration complexity as well. One of the nice opportunities that we knew I've wanted to also pursue was to really have that job-based costing analysis. So how do you really understand the nuances and the very detailed timing of what it takes to produce the job, so that they can drive better understanding of cost and therefore better understanding of overall productivity and future pricing.
Thanks, Jenny. Santo, I know that you evaluated different paths. Why didn't heavy customisation make sense for IVE?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, customisation was deemed too risky within the ERP, and look, we initially scoped to actually do an in-house development of the custom build that we're required to integrate with the ERP. That was deemed unviable because it was in excess of 10,000 hours of development to do it in a kind of traditional old code type of method. And equally, as a business, we look to focus on what our core strengths are and what we're doing in terms of applications that we're building for our clients rather than our own corporate applications per se. But we needed to protect our core systems and not overextend them, not try and fit a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah, that's really at the heart of today's story, right? Designing around limitations instead of forcing ERP beyond what it's meant to do. Jenny, from your side, why is an augmentation approach often the smarter alternative?
Well, because it does give you that perfect fit functionality without destabilizing the ERP or stretching the ERP into that custom environment, which is fraught with both implementation risk and then ongoing total cost of ownership. So you keep the ERP clean, no risky customizations, and then we can build in the missing functionality around it in a way that's flexible, scalable, and quite efficient. Our platform has a lot of very automated and AI-driven capabilities in it to drive that efficiency. So that augmentation means that the ERP plays to its strengths, and you have an end-to-end solution that, in the case of IVE, would allow them to decommission those legacy ERPs. So the ERP plus the augmented solution gives them that end-to-end process and enables them to realise the value.
Yeah, great. Santo, let's talk about the solution itself. What did Clear Dynamics actually build around the ERP for IVE?
Yeah, look, it really came down to three fundamental or core major components. The first, and we talked a lot about end-to-end reconciliation and the nuances of our environment. So it gave us the ability to track everything from order right through to invoice. The shop floor or factory floor interface was built tailored to the work that our users or our staff are actually doing, and the previous, I guess, the ERP out of the box could not provide that level of granularity for us. And then it gave us that, I think Jenny just mentioned, like that unified integration layer, and really important to us, that integrated the ERP, our sort of scheduling, resource planning tools. And really the most difficult thing for us was those 600 custom applications. So when I say the 600 custom applications, they might have been built in a few different frameworks, but we had to build an integration layer for each and every one of those frameworks. So all of that sat around the ERP and not inside the ERP, which kind of also makes it kind of composable for us as well.
Yeah, fantastic. So Jenny, what were the key design principles that guided the extension build for IVE?
Data first model. we're effectively able to inherit the way data flows and the way it's structured through that end-to-end process. So we're able to adapt to that model that I've required. So data first. We were going to pick up the functionality that meant the ERP wasn't having to be customized, and so that was obviously a key principle. Rapid build through the way AOS does our platform drives a lot of that automated code generation, and in fact, from the full stack perspective, seamless integration. So we've got some very efficient integration capabilities again that will adapt and flex to the environment that we're stepping into. So the planning tools, etc., the 600 applications. And I would say the other one was the user interface for that shop floor. And I talked on the job analysis before. We did need to configure in some start, stop, resume, pause, cancel, a lot of that kind of timing aspect into that user interface that was not going to be difficult for someone on the shop floor to pick up and run with.
Great. Thanks, Jenny. Well, Santo, let's focus a little bit on the impact now. What were the most immediate improvements to your team's experience once everything went live?
Yeah, look, definitely that accuracy and visibility were standouts. We didn't have that. Yeah, it was inconsistent in our legacy platform, so we were able to see parts of what we were able to see now, but not across the board. And it was certainly not something that was able to be done within the ERP. So our reconciliation was no longer manual or ambiguous in its nature, or certainly depending on which legacy platform it was in before. So it was standardized from our perspective for every run or every actual file, every print file for every run, for every job, for every stream, and on every sort of workstation that the operators would use. So it also gave us the ability to consistently look at our job costing and margin tracking. It was much more reliable than we had seen beforehand, and again, much more granular than we could get from the ERP, which gives us more of a macro view. And yeah, our factory teams are finally, working in a system that's been built, purpose-built, designed for them. Sort of also part of the process of that whole design and testing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you've had some bigger outcomes, obviously, with the efficiency and commissioning those legacy ERPs. I mean, that's huge, right?
Yeah, as a CTO, it was truly transformational for us in terms of, one of my colleagues actually described it as open heart surgery. You don't do this unless you absolutely have to, and that's resonated with us for some time. But yeah, we reduced our operational overheads. We eliminated single point risks, and we improved our scalability tenfold, really. So the key is now that, like, the real guts of it is that we've got an operational standardized process that's happening on across all of our different sites nationally, and it's something that took us a long time to achieve. We were talking about this journey's been 8 years ultimately in the making. So it was really great to get that first implementation live. And I guess the solution being delivered as a managed service is another critical thing in terms of we now have predictability of our costs, which is, I'm sure everyone can relate to, and then equally, we're not accumulating technical debt. So,
yeah. It's awesome. And Jen, from your perspective, I guess more the external view, what were the most significant operational wins I've achieved?
So certainly that order to invoice reconciliation. I mean, that's a degree of confidence for IVE's end customers, and certainly in terms of, as Santo said, giving that visibility and that transparency. It's a big win from a business perspective. The long-term resilience, I think, too. Santo's just commented on it. The lower tech debt exposure, adaptability for ongoing productivity improvements, further streamlining operations. You put in an application day one, and there's inevitably areas that you will learn and improve over time, and then the business changes over time. That's an inevitability, and being able to adapt and move with the business as it changes is part of that resilience equation.
Yeah, thanks, Jenny. Santo, we know that we have some leaders on the webinar today. They're listening, facing similar ERP constraints, contemplating transformations. What's your advice to them?
Yeah, look, putting the tech aside for a second, an ERP transformation project is going to be as tough as anyone you're going to do in an internal project, I feel. And it's very much about focusing on what your actual business needs are and really engaging from a change management perspective with a wide variety of SMEs, and documenting your requirements and really working through the prioritization of all those requirements and so forth. So you've got to start with a great foundational base, and we probably didn't start that journey so well, and there was lots of learnings from that. And then, it was again in the planning side of things, it's about having an iterative approach. So we ended up with an MVP. We did not go big bang. We had to mitigate risk. So we deployed. We had releases that were occurring in certain sites or certain replacing legacy ERP one. So we went that, again, a progressive nature of it all. Talked about already today, certainly not trying to force the ERP to do things that doesn't do well. That customization I felt was certainly not the right path for us. So we really wanted to choose a partner who understood both our business requirements and work with us in detail on the business requirements. And we did some prototyping work, and people got a visual look and feel about what the product was going to look like in that shop floor experience. It was a great way to achieve that. But the partner also has to understand the technical or the technology dimensions that relate to the overarching project objectives. So yeah, I could talk about this side of things all day long, because there's lots of learnings you're going to go through over a journey of such a transformational nature. But we got there.
Yeah, thanks, Sandra. I know that those leaders on this call listening will be very appreciative of those nuggets. Jenny, what are the clearest signals that an augmentation approach is the right path from what you've seen?
Look, you might either be on the path to making a transformation and bringing in a new ERP, and in that process, you might have identified the classical fit gap. There's a 20 to 30% of functionality that the ERP isn't going to meet. That's your first sign. Well, how could we augment that without customizing the ERP? There may be an ERP in existence, but you can feel as the business changes that the gap is starting to re-emerge on where the ERP stops and where the business needs to continue. Sometimes you'll find spreadsheets as a nice little symptom of that, because you start to see interesting workarounds where the ERP is just falling short from a workflow perspective. And also, if you're starting to find that integrations are getting a bit patchworky, that's another interesting symptom. But ultimately, what you're looking for is that gap between how your business needs to operate and where the ERP's strength lies. And that's where you have an augmentation approach that's going to give you the best outcome.
Fantastic, Jen. So we're coming into the tail end of our presentation today. Both Jen and myself are from Clear Dynamics, and our goal is to help our customers digitise, augment, modernise, and move to the future. We're an innovative software development company. We specialise in situations where a package solution isn't the best option. So you've heard today about our ERP augmentation approach, and we achieve this using our proprietary pro-code, low-code platform, AOS, which reduces risk, lowers the total cost, and there's a faster time to value. So a massive thank you to Santo and Jenny, and to all of you for joining us. We'll follow up with the recording and the slides. And thank you so much for joining us. If you'd like to explore how an extension model could work for your organisation, we'd love to continue the conversation with you. Have a fantastic day, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.